Hi, this is Snaily Snails. Today I thought I would go over how I got started in investing, learning about money and personal finance, and how I organize my money, make it work for me. So back in 9th grade, I started listening to this podcast. It was called Marketplace, and it was with this guy named Kai Rizdal. I think he's still doing that to this day, and he would just talk about every day how the markets are going up or down, what's like the hot stock that people are buying. It's a lot less intense than Jim Cramer. So if you know about like Mad Money. I would just listen to it. I didn't really understand most of it. During math class and economics, the teachers would tell us about how credit scores mattered, and they would tell us about student loans. My math teacher at that time, she taught us about credit scores, and she said, just get a credit card and put like gum or something on there and pay it off every single month in full, and eventually like you'll start learning about the other stuff. And then she also taught us about compounding. So it's when your money starts making money for you through interest or dividends, and eventually it becomes this very nice slope where your money just makes money for you. And I thought it was really cool. And then going into econ class, I had a very good economics teacher. So there was this one day where she took the whole class to explain what's the difference between a subsidized loan and an unsubsidized loan, how to read your financial aid letter, and how to best decide what school financially would work for you. If I'm being honest, I feel like a lot of students probably zoned out throughout a lot of these little like life lessons, but I've always been really fascinated with that. So I remember when I was applying to colleges, this lady was talking to me about Kai Rizdal and how snarky he sounded, and I'm like, yeah, but his voice is just so cool, you know? And she was like, okay, whatever. So fast forward, I meet the whale, and the whale, he was actually doing pretty well for himself considering he was like on his own as a student, and he was just like, girl, you know so much, like why are you not applying this knowledge? And I did not open a credit card until I was maybe 19 or 20, and I got my first credit score. I was pleasantly surprised that my score was 790 already. But it turns out it was because I had been paying off my student loans. And then later on, I learned, okay, I need to open up a brokerage account to actually invest. I had no idea what I was investing in, so I would start off with penny stocks, and there was one, I remember, CXRX, it shot up like 3 times. So I get paid weekly. I used to be paid bi-weekly, but then I switched jobs and now they pay me weekly. So what I do is I calculate how much I will make during the month, and then I have a separate budget that's how much I'm going to spend during the month. And on every single personal finance channel, they're always going to say, just spend less than what you earn. That's exactly what I do. I actually plan out every month how much I'm going to spend on housing, transportation, and food. I think that's like the big 3. So I'd say my first week of paycheck goes towards all the budget items. So the other 3 paychecks that I get, I put them into savings or investments. For me, I really like front loading all my accounts. So what that means is that I max out all my accounts as soon as I can. So for December, I usually have a big chunk in my savings account. So once the new year comes, I max out my Roth account and my HSA. So that's about 9,500, I think. And after that, I put all my money into investments. I like Schwab for traveling. It's a lot easier when you have like the investor card and you don't ever have to pay ATM fees. So I do keep a certain portion in cash if I plan on traveling. Another thing that I do is that I try to not pay taxes throughout the year so that when tax season comes, I have accumulated enough interest on the money that I could have paid in tax, so that way I generated a little bit more money, and so when the tax bill comes, I have more than enough to pay for it. That's just what I do. It might not work for everyone. Let me just say, it was not always like this. So when I lived back in Boston, I remember 2 paychecks, that was housing. And then after that, you know, like your money just like keeps going out the door. I just kept saving and saving and saving until I reached a target. Then I would transfer that into my investment account, because at that time when you were buying stocks, you had to pay a commission. So it didn't make sense to transfer small dollar amounts if you had to pay $5 on that, because that actually ends up being a significant portion of whatever you're trying to buy. So that's why I would do that, but now it's commission free, so I don't really have to worry too much about that, and I just transfer like as much as I can. So now my first paycheck, it goes into my checking account, and that's where I do all my like daily transactions. I put everything, as much as I can at least, on a credit card unless there's some sort of processing fee where it doesn't really make sense for me to do that. Then I would just do it directly through my account. But other than that, I will charge everything onto a credit card, and I make sure I know which one gives me the best cash back. Right now, Chase is giving 10% cash back for McDonald's. So that's what I'm doing. Like whenever I go to McDonald's, I'm like, all right, gotta whip out the Chase checking account debit card. And just getting into little practices like that helped me with creating a larger gap between my income and how much I'm spending. So that's one way of doing it. And another school of thought that people have is just make a lot more money. So that's why I've been investing. So with my investments, I do hope that it's going to pay me quite a bit back in dividends eventually, and I can hopefully live off of that. And another way for me to generate money is I turn accounts. So that means going for the opening bonuses, opening points. You have to be really organized when it comes to that, and you have to read the fine print. I remember the whale and I, we had just learned about contract law. We sat down and we decided to read Discover's entire terms and conditions for some sort of cashback reward program. So we sat down and we're like, hey, it doesn't say like this, right? And it's like, no, I don't think it actually says it. We would send each other the same $1 back and forth, because it counted as a transaction. And for each transaction, I got 10 cents. So, 10 cents adds up with that $1. So Discover actually ended up paying us $10 each month for just sending each other that $1 back and forth through Snapchat. Now Snap Cash is not a thing, I don't think. And Discover finally discovered this loophole and canceled it. They had revised their terms and conditions. But yeah, I told my law professor and he sort of just looked at us like,
this is what I'm teaching the next generation.
So that's what we did way back in the day. It helped pay for my pho, so I was very happy. And I do like my luxury goods, but I think at this point in my life, I realized like how much my money could work for me. And I do want to obtain larger goals eventually in my life. So that's where most of my money is probably going to go to right now. I'm actually at a really good place in my life. And I am kind of go with the flow when it comes to my jobs. If you're really dependent on dividends, one way you can calculate whether or not you should buy the stock is to use the dividend discount model formula. So P equals D over R minus G. So P is what you're looking for, which is the stock price that you're willing to pay for it. D is the dividends that it's going to pay you in the next year. R is the cost of equity capital, or the opportunity cost. So what you could do here is use either like the rate that you would get from a savings account, or use the average return on SPY, or the S&P 500, or whatever index fund that you are basing it off of, that you would probably put your money into. And then subtract that by G, which is equal to the dividend growth rate. So time horizon is already factored into G. I'm so sorry if you were like glossing over this. I mean, you're like, what are you talking about, girl? It's okay. Just let your money compound for you. So I hope you learned something today. I'm so sorry if this was like a lot of information. But I know for my younger family members, they've been asking me, hey, how do I get started in investing? And I would say, first, start with the Roth IRA, because it's a tax advantage account. That way they're able to save on taxes eventually, because I do think that the tax rate is going to increase. And after, I don't know, they start making the big bucks, they can't contribute to it anymore. So I'd say max it out while you can, if you are working and making at least $6,000 a year. Next, lots of people say go into exchange traded funds. I totally agree. I would just make sure that the expense ratio isn't exorbitant. There are some crazy fees out there, and I don't want you to fall victim into those. That's how I got started, and let's hope that we are all rich in 2022. All right, that's all I have for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you next week. Bye. I'm starting to see the nice little swoop.